Okay, so I'm welcoming you all to the second part of our class on full stack web development. In the first part, we were able to learn how to create our front end, talking about the web pages of our website and using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So in this second part, we'll be learning how to write the back engine. In other words, the part of your web application that does all the dirty jobs. Okay, that's what we're doing here in this second part. Of course, there are several languages we can use to do that, and one of such is PHP. Aside from PHP, you can also use other languages like Python, Java, but we are learning PHP here. And on the screen, as you can see, is the curriculum we intend to use in taking this program. This is the beginner's level, okay? This is the beginner's level of PHP. And after that, there's intermediate and advanced level. So for this beginner's level, we'll be looking at these 19 different topics, learning PHP the right way, how to install PHP and what are web servers, basic PHP syntax, what are constants and variables in PHP, PHP data types, up till the last one, match expressions, okay? We're going to look at all of these one after the other. So I hope you are ready to have an exciting time with us as we start off with the very first one, how to learn PHP. Now, what does it mean to learn PHP the right way? Some persons, PHP is very simple, very, very simple. That is one of the advantages of PHP, okay? You don't need to learn learn codes that are not, that are a little bit difficult. On the other hand, PHP is quite simple. The syntax are simple. The keywords are not difficult to remember. Well, as simple as it is, that also serves as its disadvantage. But because PHP is not simple, and because PHP is very simple, we find persons who just write applications without giving due regard to procedures. And as such, you may have applications that are not effective. It is one thing to write code, it's another thing to write effective code. It's another thing to write codes that takes care of resources, that takes into consideration the resources that will be used. Okay, so how to write codes that are effective, how to write codes that are security conscious. Okay, those are things you need to put into consideration, and you don't just learn that at the very beginning. So at the very beginning here, we are probably learning just PHP keywords and syntax. All right, and that will equip you to begin to write your PHP application. Okay, but to learn it the right way, the first thing is you learn these beginners levels. We'll talk about the syntax, talk about the keywords, the different segments of PHP programming. And then when you are done, you can now move to the intermediate level. In the intermediate level, you'll be discussing things like a database, how to connect your database to applications, okay? Then you also talk about how to create functions, writing functions, and using them, reusable small chunks of programs. Instead of writing everything just procedural from top to bottom, in function programming, you divide the different aspect of your application into small chunks, and then write functions for those small chunks, okay? Those functions can be reused at every point in time. So you're going to learn how to write reusable functions, okay? And then for the intermediate part, we'll now end it with MVC, model, view, and controller. That is where we are heading to. Once you learn how to create MVC, then you are in a position to learn any frameworks. All frameworks are built on MVC. MVC stands for M stands for model, the V stands for view, and the C stands for controller. In other words, what they're saying here is this: at the very beginning, we're writing our codes procedurally, top to bottom. After step 1, step 2, after step 2, step 3. Okay, after step 3, step 4. If somewhere down the line you are going to rewrite the code you've written in step 2 or step 3, you rewrite it again. That's procedural. Okay, but when we now get to the intermediate level, we will depart from that procedural aspect and procedural style rather, and then we now learn how to divide your program into segments and write functions for each segment. So we learn how to write functions, functional programming, okay, or object-oriented programming, OOP. We learn how to write classes and instantiate those classes as objects. So the concept of object-oriented programming will come into place when we get to the intermediate level. We also learn how to write databases, okay, how to connect your application to database. And then when we now get to the advanced level, we now enter into frameworks. And there are several frameworks you can think of here. Several frameworks. You can talk about Laravel, which is the most common now. You can talk about Symfony, which is actually the very first framework, PHP framework there was. You can talk about Fuel PHP. There are so many of them, Okay, but here we will teach you how to write your PHP application using Fuel PHP. It doesn't matter, provided you understand the concept of MVC. You can take any framework, study how the way Laravel implements MVC is slightly different from the way Fuel PHP implements MVC. But as long as you understand the concept of MVC, you can take any framework, just study 1 or 2 applications, and you understand how to go about it, right? So, but for here, we're going to learn Fuel PHP as a framework. Later on, you can choose to take up Laravel on your own and also learn that too. So that's the right way to learn PHP. Okay, you start with the intermediate and with the beginners level. Learn all the keywords, their syntax, how to use them. Okay, you learn how to connect forms, how to collect data from forms from the front end and process them at the back end. Okay, all those are in beginners level. Then from here, we'll now move on to the intermediate level, like I explained earlier on. Okay, so among the things we are going to start with right now is how to install PHP and what are web servers. Let's start with what are web servers. When you were learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you didn't have to install anything else on your system, did you? Why? Because these are browser languages. Okay, these are languages or technologies that your browser understands. So just write your simple HTML code, and the browser will immediately interpret it and execute it. Okay, and render it